Made possible through support from ARC Thrift Stores, Autism Society of Colorado, Colorado Access, Colorado Developmental Disabilities Council, Developmental Pathways, Firefly Autism, Rocky Mountain Civitan Club, and the Arc of Aurora. A Think Change training. Hey there everyone, Erica Dennison here with the Think Change program of the Arc of Aurora, providing you training and education all about people with developmental disabilities for them, their families, and the professionals in their lives. I'm here today with another fabulous expert in our community who's going to be talking all about home and community-based services waivers. Hereinafter we'll probably refer to as HCBS because it's kind of a mouthful, so that you have a better understanding throughout this multi-part series of molding the path to adulthood for youth with developmental disabilities. So my expert with me today is quite seasoned, and I'm thrilled to have her with me today. Would you care to share with our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Carol Meredith. I'm currently the executive director for the ARC Arapahoe, Douglas, and Elbert counties and have been here for about 25 years. But I'm also the parent of a man who has many different labels, but qualifies as having an intellectual and developmental disability. So I've helped a lot of people understand HCBS waivers as well as tried to figure it out for my own kids. So I've got both experiences to share with you today.
Both professional and lived experience, which I think is super important.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, you've been doing this for so long, so you've truthfully probably made a very big impact in our community. So we appreciate your thoughtful time in the disability community.
Sure.
So it can be very confusing, and we could probably sit here for hours talking about HCBS, but we want to give you a primer today. So kind of diving in, would you care to share with our viewers and listeners what home and community-based services are?
Sure. Well, they're just like they sound. They are services that support people with disabilities in general to be able to live in the community. They are not particularly medical services, even though they're funded by Medicaid, but they are things like help with dressing, eating, bathing, planning out your day, employment, a variety of different things. And so, you go to the doctor to get like medical care, you get your vaccinations and your shots and your tests. But there are people that need support to just get through their day and have a day in the community. So it sort of equalizes life in the community for people with disabilities because by definition they need support to be able to live in the community. So that's the way I think about them.
I think that's a great way to explain it because it can be super complicated to try to explain to someone who may not be familiar to it. But I think just explaining, yes, it's to serve you in your home and community is a great way to share with people, this is what the waivers are. So we are specific to Colorado, and we know that a lot of our viewers and listeners may listen to our podcast and vodcast outside of Colorado. And what I want you to know is there is HCBS services in all states, but they're all different. And so we're going to talk specific to Colorado today, but we do want you to know that a quick Google search, you could certainly find what you were searching for specific to your state. When we're talking about Colorado specifically, when should a youth get on what we like to call a quote unquote list to receive an adult waiver when they are considered an adult?
Well, it depends. So if you're a youth with an intellectual or developmental disability and you're already like connected into that system and determined eligible in that system, you can get on at age 14. For other HCBS waivers, it kind of depends, like the brain injury waiver is age 16 and above. All the other waivers are 18 and above. But we couldn't make it more complicated if we tried.
That's true.
So I'd love to be able to say, just do this. But I want you to understand all of your choices because there are a lot of choices and everybody's different. You've met one person with an intellectual or developmental disability, you've met one person. So we want to build person-centered lives because that's what works and we know it works. So, but think age 14 for IDD, typically it's age 18 for the other waivers, okay?
I think that's super helpful. And someone may be thinking while we're talking about the list, well, where is that list? How do I get on that list? Could you share a little bit about what needs to happen? Like, who do they contact? Do they contact, they wouldn't contact 7-Eleven to get on the list, right?
No.
No.
So currently, and this is November of 2022, there are two different kinds of single entry point systems in the state of Colorado. So if you're a person with an intellectual or developmental disability or an IDD, you need to contact your community-centered board, CCB. And those are, if you just Google search that, it'll pop up in a list for you. And you need to go to the one where you live, right? So if you live in Arapahoe, Douglas, or Albert County, like where I serve people, you go to Developmental Pathways. If you are already qualified as having an intellectual or developmental disability, like say you're on one of the kids' waivers, the children's waivers, or you're on the family support program or whatever, and you're already connected to your CCB, what I recommend is that age 14, you contact your case manager, your resource coordinator, your service coordinator. Everybody's got their own name for it. We couldn't make it the same.
Like you said, we keep things complicated.
Right. But contact the CCB. Make sure that at age 14 that you're on the waiting list for the HCBS DD waiver. Now, when you call the person and they said, yeah, you're on the list, you say, thank you. Could you send me an email or a letter or whatever? So confirming that. You want it in writing.
Something tangible.
Then you keep that in a file. I know y'all got files. I got plenty of them. Just keep it in a file somewhere so you've got that straightened out. Now, if you're not looking for, support from the HCBS DD waiver, you can wait till, like 17 and a half. That's when I'd start the process to enroll into the other waivers. But you need to go to a case management agency, a single entry point. It's hard because this is all changing, but
we know the future.
Community Center Board.
Yeah.
For right now.
Yeah.
That's where you go.
And there are dozens throughout the entire state of Colorado, so they're really geographic region specific. And so again, quickie Google search will get you to the right place that you need to be in order to navigate and get on that list. So I appreciate your kind of breakdown with that. What HCBS waiver options are in Colorado when a youth transitions to being considered an adult? And do any of them have waiting lists?
Well, there's 10 different waivers in Colorado. Some are for kids, some are for adults, some are, this is so crazy, some of them go through age 18, some of them go through age 21, some of them start at age 16, but most of them start at age 18 for an adult. Okay, and again, this person-centered process, we want to think about who you are and what you need to support your life. And you got a lot of choices out there, but the main thing is the transitioning to the supported living services waiver. You would call that the SLS waiver. Lots of people would call it that. Supported living services waiver. Most people with intellectual or developmental disabilities will be able to get onto that waiver at the age of 18 because there is no waiting list. The other HCBS waiver for people with intellectual or developmental disabilities is called the HCBS-DD waiver. That one does have a waiting list.
And it's long.
Unless
we're just trickling in all these little sprinkles.
unless you happen to have been on the Children's Extensive Support Waiver or the CES waiver, or the Children's Habilitation and Residential Program,
Mouthful.
the CHIRP waiver. If you're on one of those waivers, you will have a choice as to which waiver you want to transition onto. You will not have to go onto a waiting list. Okay? But everybody else who is not on those children's waivers needs to do it 14. Make sure you get the letter, the email that says you're on the list, and that puts you on the waiting list for the HCBS DD waiver. 16, 17 years old, I would start really thinking about it hard. Earlier, if you're a planner and thinker, because you want to start figuring out, how about the supported living services waiver? Is that going to be my best choice for my adult life? Mm-hmm. And you can change anytime you want, right? So you can't really make a mistake because you can try it. If it doesn't work for you, try something else.
It's true. I would agree with that. For example, I have a brother who has a developmental disability. And supported living services waiver, SLS, not a good fit for him.
Right.
So, like Carol was saying, there's an abundance of other waivers. There's 10 total, some for kids, some for adults. And he explored a different HCBS waiver offered here in the state of Colorado that better suits his needs. So just know, like Carol's saying, there's a lot of choice, there's a lot of options, and so it's really important. And we'll link it in our show notes to see what are the abundance of information about all the HCBS waivers that are available here in Colorado, because like I said earlier, we could talk forever about them. But just know that there are tons of options out there for you and your loved one to have that choice so that you can really follow your folly and figure out what the best fit is for your loved one or yourself. So I appreciate that breakdown. Again, you could talk about it forever.
Right, but don't freak out about it. It's very complicated, but just take it a step at a time, think it through, and know that you try it. I didn't like it. I'm going to try something else. That's fine.
Yep.
Absolutely fine.
Absolutely. So why would a youth who is now becoming an adult enroll into an HCBS waiver? Like what are the benefits? Why would someone even want to explore this? And why is it so important, if you're not already connected, to get on that waiting list at 14?
Well, to get on the waiting list, I mean, that's actually kind of two different questions, right?
Fair.
So the importance of looking at supports and services, and that's what HCBS is, supports and services. It's not like shots or medical care. It's supports and services. So, you're in high school and maybe you're having special education supports and services. Maybe you've got the help of a paraprofessional at school. Maybe you're in a transition program. Maybe you're doing a variety of different things as a youth. Mm-hmm. But you want to think about the support you need to live a life in the community, because there is funding available and services and supports available for you to be able to do that without always having to depend on your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your grandma, aunts and uncles, other people, right? Because school's going to end. Mm-hmm. It just is. So You may decide to stop going to school at 18 years old and that's it, or you may go into a transition program in a public school and end your school career at 21. But it's really nice to have started doing some of this work ahead of time. So like when my son he was in the transition program, but he was able to get support after school. And what was great about that is he got used to other people helping him, right? It wasn't just me or his brother or his dad. It was somebody else that came in. And they were sometimes, a lot more fun or interesting or whatever.
Shaking it up a little bit.
But you get used to it. And if you need help to go to the bank, or if you need help to go to the grocery store, or you need help getting up in the morning and getting your clothes on and brushing your teeth and those kinds of stuff, it's nice to start learning that there are other people out there that can support you to do that besides mom and dad and brothers and sisters.
Yeah, absolutely. With the supports and services available through HCBS, I often tell people who may not be familiar with the disability system or community, and I say, have you ever given any thought of what happens to, let's call him Jane, or call her Jane Doe. Did you ever give any thought about what happened to Jane Doe, who was in the special education classroom when you were a senior in high school? Have you ever thought about that? And oftentimes people are like, no, I've never given it any thought. I've never thought about what happens. Well, oftentimes maybe someone who doesn't have the disability, maybe doesn't have a disability, may go and join the military or go off to college or university, or maybe they immediately join the workforce. I don't think a lot of times people consider, what's this next step? And HCBS Services is a great next step, an alternative if someone chooses to access that, to get help with all these things that you're talking about, whether it's going to the grocery store, these daily tasks of, think about your daily tasks. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, maybe you take a shower, get your breakfast, all these things that we do. There's certainly supports and services out there that can help a youth who is now transitioning to adulthood with all these supports that they need.
Right.
Yeah. So I appreciate that breakdown. I mean, there's tons of services in all of the HCBS waivers. They're all different.
Yeah.
They're all different. I think an important thing to talk about is, what could a living situation look like for someone enrolled on an HCBS waiver? Because, I mean, for a very long time, they've probably lived at home with their loved ones, their family. Maybe it's a paid caregiver if they're on one of those children's waivers that you had mentioned. What could adult life look like, once someone is an adult who has a developmental disability? Where could they live?
Wherever they want to live, basically.
Exactly.
But it's the same as every other adult, right? You have to have enough money to pay for that. So you can live anywhere you have enough money to pay for it. It's true for any adult, and it's going to be true for you too. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it works. But just like everybody else, a lot of people end up living with they go away to college, they come back for Thanksgiving and they stay in their own room, their old room at mom and dad's house for a week. And then they come back for summer break and they stay at mom and dad's house all summer. Mm-hmm. That can happen too. You don't have to leave the family home if you don't want to. You can if you have figured out a way to pay for an apartment. Or maybe you have a really good friend who also wants to live in an apartment and you want to do a roommate kind of situation. Or maybe you want to go to college, or maybe you, want to buy your own home. There's a huge variety of ways of figuring out a living situation. Mm-hmm. You have to pay for that yourself. They call it room and board. And it comes out of, typically, if you're not working a lot, it'll come out of your Social Security money that'll come to you, either through SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Income. Now, if you've gotten off the waiting list, or if you were on one of those children's waivers that I talked about earlier, where you can automatically get onto the HCBS DD waiver, there are a few ways that Colorado has typically provided residential support for residential supports and services. So they call it residential because you're in a residence, which is like a home, right? So what by far the most popular living residential services program that is available right now is a host home provider. And how that works is they will give you a list of people who might be interested in inviting you to come live with them in their home, okay? And more than likely you'll have your own room, and more than likely you'll do stuff with other people in the household. The people that live in that house may have children of their own, they may have dogs and cats, they may not. They may have a house, they may have an apartment, they may have a condo, they may have a townhouse. You never know what it's going to look like, right? But that's for you to decide. And you would go out and interview a bunch of different people and see what you wanted to try out, right? Try living, that might be what you're interested in doing, is living in somebody else's house, which would be a host home kind of situation. There are other supported living, not the supported living services waiver, but there are other residential opportunities that offer support to live in the community. And these are like apartment programs. And how that works is that you're gonna rent your own apartment, or an apartment with a roommate maybe, or something like that, depending on who you are and what you like. And there's gonna be an agency that's gonna provide staff that will come in and help you with various things, like creating a grocery list, filling your medication box, taking a look at the refrigerator and helping you plan some meals and those kinds of things, helping you with budgeting. But the rest of the time, you're going to probably be living there by yourself. That's a different kind of living opportunity for you out there. The other thing that is rare and actually becoming rarer is what they call group homes. Now, most people have heard of group homes before. In a group home, it's 4 or more people, right? And it's usually less than 8. I think 8 is the max in Colorado right now. But that is where an agency has bought a home, and they've decided to open up that home for 4 or 8 people to live in there. You, if you decide to move into that group home, will be paying room and board. So you have to pay your rent, and you have to pay to help pay for food, okay? So you would be paying that group home to live there. And there would be, several other people with disabilities living in that home, and there would be staff there all the time to support you. So if you need help in the morning taking a shower, or maybe you need help at night, transferring from your wheelchair to get into your bed, or getting your pajamas on, or maybe you need help figuring out how to get a ride to work. Those people, the residential staff, will be the people that will help you figure that out. And, you'll cook meals together, you'll go to the grocery store together, those kinds of things. Now, of course, there's your own home, right? You can live in your own home. that's the way we figured it out for my son. So he lives in his own condo, and he has a person who is paid to live with him. So he has a 2-bedroom condo. He lives in 1 bedroom, and the paid staff member lives in another bedroom, but they do stuff together, right? They play games, they cook together, they watch TV together, they do a variety of things, and that's what we commonly call a reverse host home. So the person with a disability owns the home, and the staff person comes in to support. And then the other, probably most popular way right now is that you go ahead and stay living in the family home. So you might stay with your mom and dad or your brother and sister in their house, and so you keep your own room. You still have to pay them room and board because you're an adult now, and adults pay room and board. And they're going to do the same thing that they've probably been doing your entire life, which is if you need help brushing your teeth, they'll come help you brush your teeth. If you need help solving a problem because your boyfriend was mean to you or your girlfriend was mean to you, they'll help you figure that out. If you get, a cut on your hand and you need to figure out whether you go to the doctor or not, they'll help you figure that out. So those are the major sorts of living arrangements, and
It's abundant.
it's a lot, but remember, just because you picked one the first time, you don't have to stay there forever.
Nope.
You're not like married to it. You can try all different kinds of things till you see what fits you the best.
For example, I worked with someone a long time ago who decided to move into a host home with a host home provider, and they loved it. They loved everything about it, but the host home provider had 2 dogs. And the person who moved in there, who had the developmental disability, didn't know that they were allergic to dogs, right?
Oh.
And it was terrible allergies.
Oh, no.
And so ultimately, he had the choice, and you should probably move. If you're crazy allergic to dogs, he decided to move to a different host home. So that is an example, right? Like it just wasn't a good fit, or maybe you just don't like the provider and it's just not a good fit, or maybe you have a visual impairment and you are in a house with a ton of stairs. Maybe it's not very safe, right? So like those are, just get your wheels turning, like certainly options. I'm so happy you brought up the room and board part though, because I want to clarify that yes, you do have to pay room and board, but when you're enrolled on an HCBS waiver, you're not paying to have these services provided to you. For example, like if someone's coming to your home to take you grocery shopping, the HCBS waiver is paying for that human to take you out. So just wanted to clarify that you don't have to pay the person who's providing the services to you. That is paid for by the waiver, which can be kind of confusing because, like we've said, it's very confusing. It's a complicated system.
But what's really important to know is that Medicaid, which funds the Home and Community-Based Services system, which funds the HCBS, Medicaid is a medical insurance company. They do not pay for food, clothing, or shelter.
Room and board.
Right. Mm-hmm. They will pay somebody to help you clean your house, go buy your food, make your food. They'll pay for people to help you do that, but they don't pay for food, clothing, and shelter. They're not allowed to.
Yeah. I figured we would just clarify though, because it just can be so confusing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's the help you need. It's the support. That's why they call it service and support.
Exactly. Those are all the questions I have for you today. I know, again, we could talk forever about all of this. Is there any last minute thoughts or words of wisdom to share with our viewers and listeners before we wrap up?
I think the most important thing I can share with you is that if you're watching this, you're probably a youth, 14, 15, 16, or they're a family member of a youth. And just know that life changes, right? Remember that I mean, I'm a completely different person at 70 than I was at 18. and you have a long, long time to grow and change and develop and be the best person that you can be. So don't think about yourself as getting stuck. Think about yourself as, oh, this is an opportunity I could try. And try hard at it, give it time and learn if you like that or if you don't like that. And you may change. I mean, you might have had an allergy to dogs when you were 18, and by the time you're 30, you don't have that allergy anymore.
It happens.
It happens.
It definitely does.
It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time, and hopefully you can think about it that way, because you get to explore and do new things with new people.
It doesn't have to be the same always.
Nope.
Because we are human beings that are growing and thriving, and the sky's the limit, really.
Nope.
Absolutely. Well, Carol, thank you so much for your valuable time today and your expertise in this area. And we certainly appreciate you providing all this information to our viewers and listeners. So to everyone tuning in, thank you so much again for listening to this episode. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And in the meantime, stay curious, and we'll see you soon.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.